Hi, and welcome to the Gen X Rewind podcast. My name is Evan,
And I'm Brady.
and we are Gen X guys. And we like to meet on a weekly basis and talk about Gen X items. Just as a reminder, Gen X people are those who were born between 1965 and 1980, and we know that they're the best people that there is. That's proven over and over again. But we're just two regular guys. We sometimes talk about current events. There's always stuff happening. We talk about sports and politics sometimes, always from a Gen X perspective. So you get an idea of how perhaps your Gen X friends or coworkers think about the world. But mostly it's just organic discussion between two Gen X guys who are not PC. So if you
Right.
have tender sensitivities, you might be offended. And
Right.
it's too bad, so sad. Like we don't care.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked for a couple of weeks, Brady, because it was spring break,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure you were down in Daytona Beach or something,
Oh,
right?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Walking the beach, flirting. Yeah. You know the drill.
I got a
Yeah.
question about that a little bit later. We'll get to that. But the big stuff happening since our last discussion has been the NCAA tournament. And March Madness, or now with NIL, I think the new slogan is March Predictability,
Yeah.
right? Like they've done away with the madness part, and now we might as well just skip all the early rounds and just put the four top teams into the Final Four because that's what just happened,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Auburn just beat Michigan State just a few minutes ago, 70-64, which means all four number ones are in the Final Four. The only time that has happened in the history of the NCAA tournament was in 2008,
Oh,
and now in 2025. It had never has never happened other than that. And I think from now on, that's going to be pretty much how it always happens, which
mhm.
is unfortunate, right? No mid majors in the Sweet 16, right? My bracket, I think I told you this the other day. I did okay in the opening round. The second round, I didn't do very well. I picked every game to make the final eight perfectly and every game to make the final four perfectly. So since the round of eight, I have a perfect bracket. I have picked accurately the last 12 games. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't put that into NCAA. I just have a sheet that I printed out at home just for bragging rights with my family, right? I have Houston beating Florida in the final, so we'll see next week when we get together whether that pans out. But I've picked every game successfully since then. How's your bracket doing? You probably had Michigan winning it all, right?
And against U of A in the finals. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I was thinking when you were talking is if you called every team, every game right, and would you take Elon Musk up on his offer to fly you to Mars for free did you hear about that?
I didn't, but it sounds like something he would do. I love that kind of
Yeah,
mentality,
yeah.
right?
I think I'd take a hard pass on
I
that
don't
one.
think I want to go to Mars. I think from what I hear, there's no return flight. So
Right.
it's kind of a one-way deal,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Well,
Uh, I feel sorry for, those mid majors
yeah,
who are never going to make a final eight again because with the NIL money, the minute anybody gets good on your team, if you're Rider or, a directional school or Norfolk State, any time you get a good player, they're going to enter the portal as
yeah,
soon as the season's over and you're screwed. Like there's just
yeah.
no way.
Right, right. It that to me it cheapens you
It
know,
does.
it's also saying, before it was the actual degree, your college education
Yeah.
is your incentive to go and play there for free. It's all covered. Now that's out the window because these guys are bouncing from program to program for, for 2 years, 3 years they're gone, trying to make it in the NBA. It just, to me, it really does cheapen college sports. Um, yeah, it's too bad because it's fun to watch the Grand Canyons or the
Yeah, the North Points or
yeah,
whatever they were, and the Lipscombs and the Bryants and teams you've never even heard of
right,
before. It's
right,
always fun seeing them, and maybe they can compete and whatnot. It's like, I was reading on X this week. They're like, well, I guess the the people who put the teams in the tournament got it right because they picked the top four teams and they're all in the final. And yeah, but is that what we want? I
yeah,
mean, there's something about March Madness and teams making runs and that you didn't expect, and there's just something kind of cool about that.
yeah.
And when you have just only the top teams moving on, I don't know. And it just means that there's a lot of kids that when you recruit them as a coach, uh, you get them for 1 year, and then if they're good, they're leaving.
They're gone. Yeah, tough
And
to be a
I
coach. Yeah,
mean, yeah, it's like, and I don't know if you saw this, but Indiana University, every single player on their team, all 10, 12, whatever it is on a college basketball team, entered the portal. All
wow,
of them.
wow,
So they have to start from scratch for next year, not one returning player. They will have to get players out of the portal themselves, and they'll have to get recruits. And wow, I mean, the job of a coach for a team that's not a top 25 team, you're screwed,
yeah,
right? I mean, the way you used to coach is over. And then you got a guy like Cooper Flagg, right, who's a tremendous basketball player for Duke. He's 18.
yeah,
And he's not even like, he's 18 in like 4 months. He can
yeah,
be playing NBA basketball in October,
yeah,
right? And he'll be 18 years old.
right,
And, but so in one sense, it's like, okay, it's great. You recruit a guy like that, but you have him for 1 year and that's it. I mean, he's either transferring or he's going NBA.
right.
And
I
I'm like, is that what we want? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. I just think of the coaches who, they watch these guys when they're in eighth grade and they start recruiting them and they get a relationship with them, their parents, their families, they finally get a commitment and they come and they play for 1 year and then off to Duke or, Iowa State or one of these super programs.
That's got to be, yeah, it's got to be tough, right? I mean, my guys got beat in the second round by SEC team, and they had injury problems at the end of the year. Iowa State did. That's unfortunate. They'll be back. The the committee putting 14 SEC teams in, that has to stop. That's ridiculous. And it proved half of them didn't deserve it. They got beat in the first round. Like six of them got beat in the first round.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Teams that are 6-10 in their own conference. And then there's some team in a mid-major who's like 28-4 and they're not making it. That's
Right.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? Oh, what are you? We're 18-14 and 6-10 in our conference, and we're a 9 seed,
Right.
right? It's like, come on.
It's so
It's like if you can't even finish 500 in your conference, you don't deserve to be in the tournament. There's just no way. You just don't. I'm sorry.
No, and on the flip side, looking at professional baseball, which just started, the LA Dodgers, looking at their payroll, I mean, they've got. I heard the announcer was saying they have something like 12 guys on injured reserve that they're just paying these guys who are
Yeah.
no team in baseball could afford to
No,
carry.
tens of millions of guys,
Yeah,
dollars paid to guys, with
yeah,
injuries.
and having Cy Young after Cy Young take them on. I mean, they just are spending a ridiculous amount of money, and to me that doesn't seem fair. They Each team should have a certain amount of money to spend, and the rest you have to develop through your farm system.
Yeah.
And you that way too, you kind of get to know the players. They stick.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, so and so's Yankee superstar, all everything
Yeah.
because they're going to go out and pay for them. I just don't think that's right either.
No, and I mean, it's been happening. That's been going on for a long time, but I'm old enough in the Gen X generation to remember I watched baseball pre free agency, right? So I was able to watch teams and you would have the same team year after year. We talked about this with the NFL. When we grew up, it was you had the same team every
Yeah,
year after year in the NFL. And I mean, that could be good and it could be bad, but it's like you drafted your players and they stuck with you. Maybe your team would trade one or two guys, but before free agency, those players were locked up,
right.
right? And there was something nice about that. You knew who your team was and coming back, and you were excited about your draft picks because maybe guys could break out into the lineup and maybe you trade somebody,
Yeah,
right? One or two trades a year, something like that. But, free agency came along, and then, of course, you got the Dodgers and the Yankees with the big markets and the TV contracts. And I mean, the Dodgers are out of control right now with their spending. I think there's got to be some kind of a cap, and maybe it's like in the Premier League in England, the team can only spend the revenue that they made in the previous year. So
hmm.
if your team made $100 million in revenue, you get to spend in the next year, you get to spend 100 million.
Hmm.
That's it. You can't go over.
Yeah,
So, and that seems somewhat fair. Um, I get the argument from the player's standpoint. Why shouldn't I just make as much money as anybody's willing to pay me and everything? And like, I understand that. And I understand college basketball players, the schools make a ton of money off of them. Why shouldn't they? I get all that, but at the end of the day, are we better off? Uh,
yeah.
like as a sport and as a something to watch and enjoy? No, I don't think we are. I don't
No,
think we're better off.
and it's the NBA's responsibility to find the talent. Just like in the NFL, you've got these guys that, they're playing out of Mississippi State, or they're a pass rusher from, and they do a good job of finding those guys and getting them, drafting them. You don't have all these people all automatically just jumping ship as much as you do in basketball. It seems like now with
Yeah,
this.
it's different.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. I saw like there was some pro days in the NFL coming up to the draft this month in April. And there's a guy out of Florida. I don't know if you've seen this guy. He's 468 pounds.
Oh wow.
He's a defensive tackle,
Uh,
and he's he's by far the biggest player ever to enter the draft.
oh man.
And you should, if you're the Redskins or somebody who has to play Philadelphia in the tush push multiple times a year, this is the guy you want. Just draft this guy and stick him over the center, and you're gonna need six guys to move him off the line, right? I mean, he's just huge. I don't know what his 40 time was, but you'd be surprised though. Some of those offensive linemen who weigh 320 or whatever could put down like a 4.8 40. And it's like, that's insane, right? It's like, I don't think either you or I can run a 4.8 40, much less at 320 pounds.
uh,
You know,
yeah,
it's
the
kind of crazy.
players are just getting bigger and stronger and faster every year. It's
Offensive guards, when I was a kid, weighed 250.
yeah,
Like, I'm,
right.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
250.
Well, there's a full-on belly sticking out of the those
Oh,
guys
yeah.
the greatest shape, those old offensive linemen.
It's just about bulk, right? And it's hard to move a guy who weighs 360, right? Like, can you just imagine like 360? Like what kind of effort it would take to move a guy like that? That's just amazing.
Yeah.
And, linebackers in my day were 240. Defensive ends were maybe 265, something like that.
Yeah.
It was more kind of an even thing. Now, if you got a running back and you're 195 pounds and you're getting tackled by a defensive tackle who weighs 340, it's like I'm thinking that guy from Florida, 460. If he ever tackles like a slot receiver, he will kill them. He will
Right.
land on them and literally crush them. He outweighs them by 250 pounds. Can you
Uh,
imagine having a 468-pound guy landing on you?
yeah. Something tells me he's not going to be running free.
No, probably not. But
Yeah.
like, what if he sacks Kyler Murray, who weighs like a buck 70,
Yeah.
right? Can you imagine?
No.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be interesting. Hey, the other topic I wanted to throw out for current events was all this terrorism against Teslas. This is
Uh,
the strangest thing I've ever seen, I think. One of the strangest things I've ever seen in my life,
yeah.
right? You don't like a guy because he's cutting fraud out of the federal budget. First of all, I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Second of all, he only owns 10% actually of Tesla stock
Mm.
right now. So you're not hurting him. He's
Yeah.
fine. You're not
Yeah.
going to hurt him at all. You're hurting people who are invested in Teslas. And some 60-year-old lady in Flagstaff just was terrorized by two people who stopped her on the road and started punching her through the window of her Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are psychotic. What kind of ridiculous world do you live in where you think terrorism against a car
Yeah.
is somehow your political right to make your point? The only point you're making is you belong in a mental institution. And if the people around you are encouraging you need better friends,
Yeah.
right? And you need a different political party if that's your thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and these were the same people that were all on board with,
Oh
electric.
yeah, you had to buy electric. You
It-
guys buying your big gas guzzlers are
it-
destroying the planet. And then the idiot senator from Arizona is like, "Oh, I traded my Tesla in for my big gas guzzling SUV." I mean,
yeah.
it just defies any sort of logic or mental facility.
Yeah.
It
It's
just doesn't make any
hypocrisy.
sense. Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy at its finest. I mean, to push for electric, and for all we know, who knows? Every time they destroy one of these cars, it could be a
It's
fellow.
probably some liberal who bought it 5 years ago thinking they were saving the planet.
Exactly. And that for them to do this, and yeah, yeah, it's just the fact that they're trying to instill fear and drive people away from buying them by damaging the cars. I think, yeah, they hopefully
They're going to jail.
go to
And
jail.
it should be labeled terrorism because that's what it is. It's political terrorism. There's no way around it. It's like if you're that stupid, and I've
Yeah,
seen a bunch of these people, you can smell them through the video, right? They don't wear deodorant. You can already tell that. Like these people have no lives and they're going to jail,
yeah,
right? So you key somebody's car, you might spend 10 years in jail. And so wow, you're really at the top of the food chain there, aren't you?
yeah.
Right? Proving your intelligence. And
You know,
what gets me is like, get to the core of all this. Somebody or someone or somebody on the TV news tells you something and you ruin your life because you listen to them.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is, people are, because I get an opportunity to speak with all kinds of different people every day, and people here, for instance, one person was telling me that he's gonna dissolve Social Security. He's gonna destroy Social Security, and this is what's going to happen. And I'm thinking, I specifically remember hearing him say he's not going to
No,
touch.
nothing, none of that is true.
Not
None of
true.
it.
So where this falls into people that are propagating that propaganda on the news, just to rebel, or what's the word they say?
Yeah, I mean, that's it.
resist,
Yeah,
resist. If they're willing to tell uh, falsehoods over the news and persuade people to do these things, there's got to be an accountability there.
there should be.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You should be held accountable for that. If you're provoking people to violence,
exactly.
you need to be held accountable for that. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because since the last time we talked to, some of the Kennedy files came out, and it's pretty clear that the CIA involved with maybe a foreign government and everything, and maybe the vice president were all complicit in
Wow.
Kennedy's assassination. And I just heard this week that maybe NBC had a video of Lee Harvey Oswald standing on the street watching
Wow.
as Kennedy was shot, or at about the same time, right? And so we're waiting to see if that comes out, but that's the rumor now that they just sat on it because
Mm,
they were told to, I'm sure, to not publish it or whatever. And I mean, essentially, pretty much all of it shows that how manipulated the American people have been by political entities
yeah.
for who knows how long. A
Yeah.
hundred years, maybe. I mean, it's unbelievable. And whether we'll ever get to the bottom of it or anybody will ever be held accountable for any of it, your guess is as good as mine. But it makes me rethink everything from my childhood,
Yeah.
right? And everything that you learned in school, you're like, yeah, that's probably just a lot of propaganda, right? Like it's sad to think that, but it's proven true too many times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You think of the amount of patriotism that existed, as a kid too, how proud you are of your country and everything. And then you start hearing things about how evil the government's treated.
Yeah, how corrupt.
Yeah.
And it makes you, it makes me angry that I was manipulated,
Yeah.
right? That's what it does. At the end of the day, it just makes me angry and sad that people in power felt free to manipulate everyone. This is regardless of your political party. This happened on both sides, obviously. It's just one big uniparty, and the whole thing was just a big scam to take money
Yeah.
and to manipulate markets and every. I mean, look at the egg thing. This is just something that everybody can understand. The genius vegetable head Biden killed 100 million chickens and drove the price of eggs up in November prior to the election to try to sabotage Trump on his way out,
Wow.
right? So $8 for a dozen eggs or whatever. Now the price is back down to $3,
Mm.
right? Because common sense has prevailed, right? Um, who does that? I
Yeah.
mean, is that what you want? Is that what you want? You want political parties sabotaging the country, right? This is what's happening in Canada. The whole country's imploding,
Yeah.
right? They have a guy who's in charge who nobody voted for. They're going to have an election. They're going to cheat.
Mm.
Uh, I heard there was Canadian hockey players who were like, I can't believe my country is this stupid,
Mm.
right? Like they just can't believe it, right? Like what happened to them?
Yeah.
And they just became passive somehow, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens. You stop thinking and I heard some stat, I didn't verify it, but like 1/4 of all people in Canada who have jobs work in the public sector, work for the government in some
Wow.
fashion, city,
Wow.
state, national, right? So it's all just a big scam. You just hire everybody. That's what was happening here. There was like a million people hired in the government to jobs that don't really do anything, just to inflate the numbers to make the party in power look good, right?
Oh, just the amount of corruption is
No, it's
yeah.
hard to comprehend. Hey,
Yeah.
Brady, I got three questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, did you go to prom?
I did. I did. I did. Junior,
And
senior, yeah.
was everybody have big hair? That
That
was
was
my favorite
yeah,
part of that question.
the big poofy dress.
Yeah, the poofy dresses, shoulder pads, the
Yeah,
perms.
yeah,
You probably had a perm.
yeah. I sure did.
I
Uh,
did not. And it's strange. Like in hindsight, if I had to do it over again, I would. But at the time, I just thought my perception of what prom was everybody hooked up and went to a hotel, and I
so,
just didn't want to be a part of it.
hmm.
Hang on here. So I don't know. I just decided that I wasn't going to do that. And my son's now, he's a junior. He's not too excited. He's like, I said, "Are you going to go to prom?" That's for girls. That's what he said. And then I'm like, "Hey, what about this freshman or whatever?" "Oh, you can't take someone who's not in your grade. Maybe you could get away with one grade below you, but like a freshman or something." I'm like, that was like a sign that you were like on top of your game when I was in high school. I was dating freshmen as a senior. It's like that was like
Yeah,
prime
yeah,
show off game, right?
yeah. That's good. My junior prom was a. I'll tell you, it's a long story, but um, we had a girl that transferred from Canada, of all places, that was really, really pretty. I mean, she was really pretty. She was up there. But she transferred in, and prom was coming up like a few weeks later. So there wasn't a lot of time to really kind of
Right.
get to know this person. But I decided I was going to shoot my shot and, to go. And I did, and she said yes. And so, we went on a couple dates before prom, and everything seemed fine. I met the parents, and it was a little weird. Like the dad said something like, "She needs to be home at 11 o'clock." And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Have her home at 10:30." And he said, "She needs to be home at 11 o'clock. Say it." And I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll have her home at 11 o'clock, And I thought, okay, that's different,
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to prom and take her to this really nice, the Thomas Edison Inn from where I grew up, right on the water. It was probably one of the fanciest restaurants that we had. It was
You didn't
um,
go to Red Lobster?
no, it was booked. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, but I'm sitting down, and we're having a nice dinner, candlelight, watching 1,000 foot ships going by. And the maitre d' comes up to me and says, "Sir, you have a phone call from your parents." And
No way.
I'm like, "Well, that's not good. That's,
Yeah, that's
calling
never good.
a restaurant unless the house is like burning down or something."
Yeah,
And so I get the phone, and both parents are on the phone. This is big. They're
that's
both,
not good either. Yeah.
and they say, "You got to take her home. You got to have her home early. The courts are involved." Uh,
What?
then she's been in a juvie thing that,
Oh my gosh.
court order, and her parents called us and said that that she's got to be home at this time, but they're gonna seek legal blah 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 and all this stuff.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm
No
like
way.
shocked. I'm not even. I couldn't touch the rest of my.
Oh my gosh.
I was shocked. So I I came back to the table, and she said, "Was that my parents? Did they want to talk to you or something?" And I said, "No, that was my parents. And they said that the courts are going to come after me if I don't have you home
Oh
by."
my gosh.
She's like, "Oh no, that's like, I'm having you home at 10 o'clock." So,
Yeah.
that basically, long story short, obviously they came to our school fleeing another.
Oh my gosh.
She was
She's
really,
like, "Excuse me while I readjust my ankle bracelet."
yeah, he's gonna blow into the. into the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The car would
Oh
start.
my gosh.
You know, so let that be a lesson.
Oh, wow.
After you do your due diligence with,
Don't date Canadians.
yeah, right?
Yeah. It's like,
Not a good idea.
oh my gosh. So I think probably every guy has some story, I imagine, about a girl that he dated and the parents were
Oh yeah,
like something
yeah,
wrong with them.
yeah.
So I dated a girl. I was a junior and she was a freshman. Took her to a movie, went to see E.T. So you could kind of tell what time frame this was,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, she she said, I got her home on time, whatever. Like 3 days later, there's a knock at the door at my house. I go down, it's her dad. He's standing at my door. So I like open the door and go outside. I'm not having this conversation inside with my parents there, right?
And yeah.
So he's like, so you like my daughter? And it's like, well, yeah, I took her on a date. Yeah, she's not allowed to date until she's 16. And she was
Oh,
15 at the time or what. Well, she didn't tell me that,
wow. Yeah,
right? Like how am I gonna know? She didn't say what,
yeah,
what did she say she was doing when she was on a date with me?
yeah,
Right? Like I don't know. How do you know? She
yeah.
must have made up some story. She was staying at a friend's house. I don't know. I didn't know any of that.
No,
And turns out, I mean, the guy's kind of a psycho, and he is still to this day. I've talked with her, within the last 5 years or so. And, she's a really sweet person and always was. And she said, yeah, it's the same story my whole life, right? Like that her dad is kind of a nut job, right?
oh,
And it just makes me sad, but it freaked me out, right? Like, oh my goodness.
yeah,
Somebody, I'm 16, I'm 17 probably at the time.
yeah.
And this 40-year-old dad shows up. I mean, are you kidding me?
I would have been mortified.
Oh my gosh, I was horrified. And I was like, well, that's the end of that, right? I don't need that headache. It's like, oh my gosh.
Your mom say, "Who was that at the door?"
Yeah, she's like, who was that? And I go, oh, this
Uh,
some
the sales,
John Cocktoson person, did a Fletch thing there. Dr. Rosenfregen,
Jehovah.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Some guy, salesman on a vacuum cleaners. I don't know. It was weird. I mean, that's one of the weirdest things I've ever had. Hey, before I forget too, before we get other questions, I wanted to say George Foreman passed away this last week. And
Right.
I think I shared it on a previous podcast that I met George Foreman on an airplane probably 20 years ago, right?
Oh,
And he was an incredibly nice person. He asked my name. He said, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Evan." I said, "When I was 10 years old, you were like my hero. I wanted him to win in 1974 or whatever. And I thought it was great. And he shook my hand, and it literally his hand, like fingers were touching my elbow. His hand. I've never experienced a hand that it was like grabbing a bunch of bananas. It's like it was, you can't imagine a guy with hands that big punching you in the
oh,
head,
yeah,
right? But I was honestly, I'm not usually emotionally attached to celebrities or any famous people. There's only
right,
been a few people in my life who a famous person dies, it causes me to sort of pause and reflect. Normally it doesn't, but uh, George Foreman turned his life around, right? And had a 2.0 version, and he was a great guy.
yeah,
And I always thought that was impressive for somebody like that to be able to say, "I'm going to be a different person the rest of my life. I don't want to be the angry guy."
right.
And you can watch. There's a movie about him, Big George Foreman. It's a movie about his life and stuff, and it kind of goes into that. And uh, But yeah, that caused me to pause. I was sad, right? And he wasn't that old. I think he was 74, 76, something. And then I was talking to my son about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, you're a boxer. How long do you expect to live?" Right?
Yeah,
And it's like, it's the truth. Like, how many times did you get punched in the head?
right.
He had 70 or 80 professional fights, right? Over
Yeah,
the course of a 25-year boxing career. Uh, and I said to my son, I've never been punched in my head. Like, not in my entire life has anyone ever punched me in the head,
yeah,
right? I've fallen off bikes and stuff, right?
yeah,
But no one's ever he got punched in the head thousands of times, probably.
yeah, yeah.
So, like, that can't be great. So, you mentioned your prom date. When was your first date, though? That was my other
Oh
question.
gosh, that first day was back in. Let's go all the way back to, was it eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade? Um, and they had these little cute little dances in middle
Yeah,
school. I
right.
remember we went to a movie, and parents drop you off,
Yeah,
and yeah, that's probably my first recollection of starting to date was eighth grade. Yeah.
okay. I think my first date was in 10th grade, and it was a senior who asked me out, right?
Oh,
Which was
oh,
that was my first date.
yeah.
Um, she was a very nice person, and what? We got along really well, and we're friends after high school and stuff. But we probably went on 2 or 3 dates, something like that. But we stayed friends for
Yeah.
quite a long time.
Yeah.
My last question is, did you play traveling sports? Like, that's such a big deal now, but did you play traveling sports?
Yeah. So hockey, early on, I did. And we were right on the Canadian border. So we would have tournaments where we would go up into Canada. And
Wow.
it was quite the experience because even when we had really good teams and we would win our league, we would go up to Canada, and it wasn't
Get smoked.
in a game or so, but yeah, the end is coming soon. Those guys were
Yeah,
so fast and so good. I mean, they did that and that only year round.
that's the thing, right? That's all they do is play hockey. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I will tell you one thing that experience I had in one of those tournaments. I was a goaltender, and we were really really good this one year. We had a great team, good scores, fast team, and we played this like mega Canadian team. And I heard that one of the guys on this team was like Ripley's Believe It or Not did a thing on him.
Oh, really?
Lived next door to Wayne Gretzky, and like it was a
Nice.
big thing. And I remember hearing about this. Wow, this team is just amazing, and we're gonna have an opportunity to play them. Well, we played. This guy's shot was like out of a cannon. I mean, he would full on slap shot, hard, like a full grown man would hit,
Right.
and he was lighting the lamp like every.
A
Since the lamp was
lot
on.
of top shelves.
Yeah, yeah, he was calling it, like in billiards. But the coach, what I remember about that is I remember too catching it in my glove, and it hurt my hand
Stung.
like
Yeah.
so bad. And there's a lot of padding in there and everything, but you would try and catch it on the netting because if it hit your hand, it was like a.
Yeah.
Anyways, I remember afterwards, their coach came into our locker room and he said, "Where's the goaltender?" And they're, like, here I am. He
Yeah.
goes, he says, I want to tell your coaching staff, and I want to tell him that I've never seen anyone um, compete like him, and that we would score, and he just picked himself up and dusted himself off and went full full steam for the
Yeah.
play. He didn't get down. He didn't, pout or throw. I just wanted to commend your goaltender for that. that made a that was memorable for me
Yeah.
going forward, um, and I made my parents proud too. But yeah, that's what I remember going into Canada and just getting our block cleaned.
Yeah. It's like my son. They went to a traveling team and they went a soccer game and it was right on the Mexican border. And yeah, that team was pretty good.
Yeah,
It was 2-0, I think. So it's not like they got killed or anything, but it was. And then it's funny because it turns out his one of his doctors that he went to see, he's from that town. And so they were talking about it and said, yeah, those kids are pretty good down there, right? That's pretty much all they do.
yeah,
And their field is like dirt. I mean, literally, it was just totally crap. Most of the fields around here have artificial turf, right? The football and soccer fields do.
yeah.
So they said that was different. I did not play traveling sports. I played just city only sports and in high school baseball where we would, 60 miles maybe was our furthest trip, but we didn't do much more than that. It's
Yeah.
a scam. It's just a money grab,
Oh, sure.
right? For these leagues, it's just, get your kids in there and then it's a big money grab.
Yeah,
Costs $1,000 per kid, whatever, right? Like it's
man.
like anything else, but you do it. All right, you got 3 questions for me, Brady?
I focused more on the list for the
Yes.
TV
We got
shows.
the TV list.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about.
So yeah, so last time we talked about our favorite movies, and if you missed that one, go back and listen to that because that was a good discussion about a lot of good movies, and hopefully some of you went out and watched some of those movies maybe that you hadn't seen. But we made a TV list, right? So favorite TV shows all time. I broke this down, Brady, into 3 categories. I did so I decided to, approach it a little bit differently. I decided to do mystery, comedy, and drama. So those are my categories for TV shows.
Okay.
I even have a little bit of a background for this one.
Oh,
Look at that's like the TVs from when we were kids, right? Look at that. Check that out. Like
oh,
clink,
yeah.
clink, clink,
Yeah,
right? The knobs.
yeah.
So mystery in the mystery category, um, I guess that's how else to call it. Fargo, the TV series Fargo. There's been 4 seasons, I believe, of Fargo. The first season of Fargo, the TV show, is one of the best seasons of a TV show I think I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. And I watched it probably 5 times. Billy Bob Thornton is in it. But it's just creepy and I don't know. It's just so watchable. I don't know how else to describe it, right? Um, The Americans, which is a show from a few years ago, and they're Russian spies, but they were like brought to America when they were young and they have kids, and the kids don't know that they're Russian spies. They're just regular kids going to school and they're doing all this other stuff. That's a pretty very entertaining and mysterious kind of show. Making a Murderer, which was a 2-season documentary in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And man, it's so watchable and also maddening and creepy and how bad the cops are and manipulative and uh, don't ever get interviewed by the cops without a lawyer, right? Like it's just like we've said that so many times. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, and don't ever let your kids,
No.
they had a mentally handicapped kid and they were just interviewing him for like 8 hours straight, manipulating him. It's
Yeah.
like, how can they get away with that? Anyway, um, there is another series called Unbelievable, and this is just 1 season, and you could probably find it on Netflix. I can't remember where it was on. It was just really fascinating. It was 2 female detectives, and it's about a girl who claimed that she was raped. And the whole series is about, well, was she?
Hmm.
Or was she just making it up? And sometimes you don't even know if she thinks she was.
Hmm.
It's bizarre, but it's extremely watchable. I don't know how else to describe it. And then Bosch. There was like 6 seasons of Bosch. This is on Amazon Prime, and then there's Bosch Legacy.
Oh,
And hang on, there's Bosch Legacy. He's a detective in LA. I don't know. It's just my wife and I really have enjoyed that one. And
yeah.
then White Lotus. There's 3 seasons of White Lotus. It's very odd. It's a HBO Max series, but there's something like you can't predict what's going to happen. And I said that about movies. I like that. Right.
Right.
So those are, I'm calling those mysteries.
Okay.
Right. And comedies, all-time comedies. This is where we start to dial back. Most of the mysteries were recent, but comedies, you know my number one. It's a lot of people who are Gen X's number one. Seinfeld is the funniest series and the most rewatchable. I probably watched every episode 40 times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to believe it's 30 years old, right? Series 30 years old. Um, Probably a day doesn't go by where I don't quote something from Seinfeld. Like I just don't like, and I have friends, you included, but multiple friends who we're not together for 5 minutes and we are already quoting Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
There's just something about it that just makes it really quotable and memorable and funny in just a silly, dumb way sometimes, but just everyday life, there's something in Seinfeld that's quotable
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
constantly.
There's a,
The Brady Bunch. Watched it with my son. He thinks it's funny. It's timeless. Like
yeah.
it's set in the 70s and it's got the vibe of the 70s and the clothes and all of that. But if you watch it today, it's timeless. It's the same story that you have with your kids. It's just different clothes, right? I mean, but it's simple stuff. It's innocent. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's just there's something relatable about the kids and the relationship and just I don't know. It's just a very watchable, nice show. There's
Yeah.
just no, it's just very entertaining.
Yeah.
And you're gonna laugh and relate to it, right? The kids do dumb things and it comes back to bite them. And it's just, I don't know. There's just something really nice about it.
Yeah.
MASH is one of my favorite comedies of all time. I've rewatched it recently, went through the whole thing. The first 4 or 5 seasons, especially,
Mm.
are just tremendously funny. It got a little bit too serious towards the end, I thought, a little bit too full of itself, maybe. But those first seasons, when they were very irreverent, they had a black character called Spear Chucker. So, I mean, like, can you imagine today?
No, no. That was the,
Uh, that was a different time period, right?
yeah.
MASH was a great show, though. And Leave It to Beaver, again,
Oh,
uh, it's set in the 50s. I mean, it's from the 50s, not set in the 50s. It's from the 50s, but it's incredibly relatable. Every kid has experienced what those kids go through because those are just the cycles of life when you're a second grader and an eighth grader or whatever, right? It's the same things that you experience today. It's just much more innocent.
mhm.
And it's just fun looking back at, the dad wears a suit coat around the house and the mom wears pearls in a dress around, it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And the writers did just enough. They created just enough of a storyline with each episode that it,
Yep. There's
yeah.
just something really like enjoyable about it. My son loves it too. We've watched it through 2 or 3 times, right? And it's just relatable.
Yeah.
In the drama category, a show that we watched with you guys back in the day, Lost.
Uh, I mean,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, first time through, it's one of the best TV series you'll ever see.
Hmm.
First time through, because you have no idea what's going on,
Yeah.
and that makes it incredibly entertaining. And it loses something when you binge watch it now because you don't talk about it or wonder what's going on. You find out because you just watch the next episode. But back in the day, right, it was You wait a week, you talk about it. What the heck happened? What was that? And then you have the whole summer off and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And it was just, you couldn't stop talking about it.
Right.
And it's still good. It's an incredibly beautiful show. Like it's in Hawaii, the colors and the photography it's just a beautiful show to watch. And if you haven't seen Lost, watch it. But take a break from time. Don't just binge the whole thing, right? Take a break. Think about what you might be seeing, right? Because it's totally strange. Uh, The Sopranos, and I'm sure that's probably on a lot of people's lists. Sopranos is a great show. It's hard to watch sometimes, and binge watching it again is becomes a little bit overwhelming because it's so many people die,
Mhm.
right? And back when you were watching it live, you had a week off, right? And so it spread it out, and the seasons sometimes were like a year and a half between. If you binge watch the thing in 2 weeks, you just saw like 80 people get killed,
Yeah.
right? It's like it has a little bit of a different impact, but it's tremendously fascinating. The writing is great. The acting is amazing. The story is really entertaining, one way or the other. Narcos is a Netflix show. I love Narcos. There's 6 seasons. There's three in Colombia and three in Mexico. It's based on true stories and real people and everything. It's very fascinating. Uh, just very entertaining. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are my other two.
Yeah.
I mean, the writing in those shows, it's just so entertaining.
Yeah.
You just like I start watching so many shows and I get about halfway through the first episode and I'm like, it's like I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't care about the characters or whatever. I didn't watch Breaking Bad when it first aired at all. And then I was like, okay, I need a new show to watch. Well, a lot of people talk about Breaking Bad. I'll watch the first episode and see if it hooks me, whatever. And I mean, 2/3 of the way into the first episode, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to finish watching this.
Yeah.
Right? I was hooked.
Yeah.
And then Better Call Saul, the last 2 seasons, especially of that, are just phenomenal
Hmm.
shows. I mean, just like you don't know what's going to happen and the characters, oh my gosh, it's just really dramatic. So
Yeah.
that's my list.
Okay. Those are solid. Yeah. This actually will work well because I kind of went back to when I was a teenager or a young boy and created a list of what my favorites would be at that time.
Nice. That's a good way to do it too.
Yeah, it's a little hard because, you've got some of the older ones, which are, Andy Griffith, Leave It to Beaver. Uh, you've got those classic 50s ones that aren't really generated during our Gen X time, but love those. Wholesome,
Yeah.
they're good stories, good writing. But the first one I have on the list, I loved Great American Hero.
Oh
When
yeah. It's got a great theme song, right? Like you can't not sing that to yourself, right?
Yeah. And one of the coworkers, her dad actually filmed some of those episodes
Oh,
and
really cool.
talking about this, uh, how silly and ridiculous that
Yeah, but
that
somehow it was good.
exactly. And you go back and you watch it now, and it's really the film on it. It's 1980,
Yeah,
so
it's kitschy.
it's not as clear as what they have now, but I just remember really enjoying that show, as silly as it was. Of
Yeah, it
course,
was enjoyable.
yeah, that one was fun. Cosby Show was huge, just absolutely enormous. Thursday nights, definitely would watch that, and Elf, those two.
Yeah, and Family Ties, that was the other one that was a big Thursday night. That
Yeah,
I really enjoyed Family Ties as well. I fashioned myself as a kind of a real life, Michael J. Fox character from that
yeah,
show. That was kind of my vibe.
yeah, that was a classic. Um, Also, let's see, Chips. Chips was
Chips was a
big.
good show. Yeah.
That was fun. They always created just enough to kind of keep you interested in it. The A Team,
Yeah,
uh,
that was a big one, of course.
fun show. Machine guns going off, nobody dies. Incredible,
Yeah, isn't that how it was?
incredible how that is. Here's one you may or may not be familiar with. Um, Actually, when we would go into Canada, we would see this one. This one was big. It was called Manimal. Uh,
I do
it,
remember that. Yeah.
this guy could turn into, it's probably silly if you watch it now, you think, oh, brother. But as a kid watching it, where a guy could turn into a Black Panther or a
Yeah,
tiger,
yeah.
that was really fun. Of course, Incredible Hulk. Uh,
Yeah.
love that.
I
Brady.
did love Incredible Hulk too, because it's like you felt sad for the guy, right? Because it just never worked out and he'd meet a girl and then, he'd get mad and then the whole thing would blow up in his face and then he'd have to, hitchhike to the next town, right? The
Yeah,
really sad music at the end of every
yeah.
show as he was hitchhiking to the next town.
Poor guy, always getting pinned under a car or
Yeah, it's something always. Lou Ferrigno in the green body paints and it's like, but there was something about it. What I like about that stuff, same with Greatest American Hero, is like there wasn't really special effects. It was like in camera stuff,
yeah,
right? Lou
yeah,
Ferrigno just had green paint on and
yeah,
his pants would split out, but not in the butt for some reason, right? Like it's just, the bottom of them would get short but it was
yeah,
entertaining. We liked it. That was a great show.
yeah. Love that. Like you mentioned, the Brady Bunch, that was a classic. MASH, like you mentioned. Two others, Magnum PI, that was
Yeah,
a
Magnum.
love that. Gilligan's Island, that
Yeah,
was
of course. It was on every day when you got home from school, right? You probably saw every episode like 1,000 times.
oh yeah, and that's another dumb one that never worked, but it was just I don't know what it was about that show. It was
Something funny about it,
yeah,
right? I don't know. Even though now, by today's standards, it probably there's just something about some shows, they just strike your funny bone in a certain way. And,
yeah.
it's like my dad, I think we mentioned like my dad's favorite show is Hogan's Heroes, right? It's like, yeah, what's not funny? German concentration camp with POWs. It's like, what's not to like, right? But
That's not
somehow the show is tremendously funny,
yeah.
right? And then also had mystery to it and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and last, and this is typical of that is the Munsters, if you remember that.
Yeah. Same one. I after school every day. Munsters would be on.
Yep, yep. Catch,
Adam's Family.
yeah, all
Same
those.
same stuff. The shows that I watched in the 70s too. I mean, I was a big Charlie's Angels and Starsky and Hutch. Those were my two of my favorite. And then Love Boat, right? Like because my it was a show that my mom could watch.
Yeah.
Uh All in the Family, Love Boat, Carol Burnett Show,
Oh yeah, Carol.
Jeffersons,
Gosh, if
right?
forget about all that stuff, and then you hear it.
Yeah.
Don't forget Jake and the Fat Man.
Jake and the Fat Man, Sanford and Son was another one from that era too. It's like show all these shows you could never make,
No,
right? What's happening?
yeah,
Good times, and these were, I don't know, there was just something. So, Welcome Back, Cotter. These were shows that there was something kind of innocent about them,
right.
right? In that day and age, they were trying to be sometimes a little poignant but in hindsight, they were just really innocent, right?
Yeah, and entertaining.
And
Right?
and entertaining. It's like that's what people forget. TV show's supposed to be entertaining.
Yeah, there was no political push
No,
thing, or
it's
you
just
know,
like we're political so that you'll laugh,
yeah,
not political because we want you to, change who you vote for. It was more about like it's funny. We're just gonna exaggerate everybody's thinking on things, and you could make fun of people, and you could. I mean, it was just that was what you did, and there was something really entertaining about that, right? Like,
Well, and
uh,
the whole premise of finding a suit from outer space that you can fly and you lose the directions on how
yeah,
to.
that's right. It's like, would you like to be the in the pitch meeting for that,
Yeah,
for shows like that? Like, what's the pitch, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I always think that's funny, and that's one of Seinfeld's things too. Like he does in his stand up, like, what was the pitch for a show like that, right? Like, how did that get passed?
Oh
How do
man.
it's even like Charlie's Angels. It's like, okay, this guy we never see hires three attractive models to be detectives, right? It's like some marketing guy at
Yeah,
ABC said, yeah,
you're
like,
right.
are they really hot? Right? Like, yeah, they'll be really hot. Okay, it's a go.
That's a
It's
yeah,
like,
that's a season.
that's a season right there. That's a show. That's a show. That's the beauty of it, right? It's funny. I mentioned TV lineups in the book. By the way, I've mentioned the book. I'm going to start promoting it here pretty soon. I've been working on covers, designs, did an edit thing of 320 pages. That is no fun, let me tell you. Reading something and editing it, 320 pages worth. It's not fun. But it's very funny and there's some poignant moments and everything. I think our audience will appreciate it. I'm going to try to get it on Amazon within the next week or two, hopefully, get it wrapped up and stuff. But a lot of fun doing that. But I mentioned like the Saturday morning lineup for cartoons,
Yeah,
and I mentioned the Saturday night, like 1976 Saturday night lineup of what the shows were and stuff. And it's just fun looking back at that and
yeah,
what TV was like and just how you consumed TV. You would sit down on the floor and watch 3 hours of TV on a Saturday night, right?
yeah,
My
yeah,
son watches like 20 minutes of TV a week,
yeah.
right? He's got like, he doesn't want to watch the entire NCAA basketball game. Let's just watch the highlights. Or like we watched the other, Florida had that amazing comeback. They were down 10 to Texas Tech with like five to play. Came back and won it. Well, let's watch the last 5 minutes of that. I've already seen the score on my phone, so
Yeah,
it's a totally different
yeah,
world, right? The attention span, uh, just all of that. We would go to movies and sit there and then watch it sneak into a second one, right?
yeah,
That's what you did when we were kids.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
I got one, I wanted to throw this up there. I always look for like a post of the week, right? If I can find something interesting. So the post of the week, this is one you'll probably relate to this one, Brady. All right, so here is the post of the week. This is an ad from like a magazine from when we were kids, right? So let me move out of the way.
oh boy.
That's a toy that you could buy. If you think this gun looks great, wait till you hear it, right? And it looks like an M16 Marauder by Mattel. It's made by Mattel. It's a toy.
Yeah. And I remember that. I remember that the noise that that would make
You
because some
push you pull the trigger and it like something spun and made a
yeah,
clack, clack, clack
yeah,
noise or whatever.
exactly. Yeah.
So to all of you folks with your sensitivities, when we were kids, we were buying toy M16. The thing looks real.
It
Like I'm
does.
surprised more kids didn't get killed by cops,
Yeah.
being out on but we all had one, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody had a toy machine gun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
Uh,
crazy.
and I had a toy bow and arrow and a toy tomahawk. It was rubber.
Yeah.
It's a tomahawk.
And you could probably on an airplane back in the 80s too, right?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no kidding. I mean, sure. It's like, oh, what do you got there? Toy tomahawk? Yeah, go on, right? Like, so what is that? Mattel's M16 Marauder? Oh, go ahead. But you want me to help you put it in the overhead bin?
cute boy. Cute boy.
It's like, look at the cute boy with his toy.
Right.
It's like this is, I mean, everybody, I had so many guns and
Yeah.
arrows and
Yeah.
we had cap guns with that smelled like sulfur or whatever when you I mean, that was the greatest thing invention ever,
Do they
right?
have those anymore? I don't think I've seen
You
a.
can buy them on Amazon, but they don't like sell them at the stores, but you can still buy the fake Colt pistols and you put the roll of caps in them. And for
Uh,
those of you who don't know what we're talking about, like the you pull the trigger and the hammer hits a cap and it explodes, right? So it makes a pop noise and then there's like a puff of smoke and it smells amazing. Like every kid from our generation knows exactly what that smell is, right? From a
yeah.
roll of caps. And sometimes you get the roll of caps and you just take a hammer and hit them, right? You just
Yeah.
stretch it out and you just hit them on the ground.
Yeah.
Or you throw them into a fire, right?
Oh,
Just to
that
see
was
them
fun.
all go off.
Yeah. Did
It
you ever
was entertaining.
remember those snakes where you literally just you hold the match to the it looked like
Yeah.
a
And then it
cylinder.
would spin or whatever.
It would start to grow and grow
Oh,
and
yes, yes, yeah, the growing snakes. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we were just mesmerized by holding a flame to that, and the thing would.
It's
It's
like,
the most
and it's
stupid.
so funny. It's like we played with matches like every day in the summer, right? It was like
Yeah.
you get the box of matches out, some kid would steal it from his house, and you'd be lighting fireworks and cherry bombs and firecrackers and blowing your fingers off. And
Witch whistles and yeah.
yeah, everything,
Yeah.
right? It's like, and smoke bombs. Like I loved smoke bombs. Like you'd get some kid went to Canada and came home with a bag of smoke bombs, right? You just go and toss them around, you know. Hey, look, we just got back from Canada and I got a bag of smoke bombs, right?
Yeah. Good.
That was the fun. It's interesting because in talking about the design for the cover of the book, it's like I got a couple different things, and but you and I have talked about it. One of the key features of Gen X was that freedom and adventure and exploring and just being out,
Right.
right? And so, I got a couple of designs that are, kids walking on a railroad tracks out in the country because that part of life doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, for most kids, right? You're just out with friends and you're walking on a railroad track. Right? Who does that? Is my son. I actually have a picture of him when he was like 5 in Tempe, where I used to live, and there was a railroad tracks, and I actually have a picture of him walking on a railroad track. I wanted to give him the experience of like at some point when you're a kid, you need to walk down a railroad track, right? And you probably also need to have your toy M16. Oh, there goes my video. Yeah, I mean, every kid needs to have a bow and arrow and a fake tomahawk and a fake M16 at some point in their life, right? It's just a
Uh, you know what?
different time.
Yeah, so simple. I wonder too if sitting in a car with no entertainment and you're just forced to sit there and look out the window, commercials, you're forced to watch commercials.
Yeah,
You're not there sitting in front of the TV when the show's on, you miss it. I wonder how much that plays into developing us the way that we are with able versus always having to be entertained. Your phone, you never do
yeah,
commercials. You always have to have this entertainment. And I think that'd be interesting to do a study to see how
yeah.
that
Your brain has to develop differently because of that, right? Like this no attention span. Everything is like 6 seconds of a video. You can't sit and watch a 2-hour movie.
right.
Um, you don't go outside very often. It's just that has to have done something different to people's brains,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It just absolutely your kids are wired differently. And that's the premise of the book too, is like we experienced life differently than generations before us and after us. And I'm afraid we were the last generation to have that experience of really being an outside entertain yourself generation, right?
right,
Where you
right.
had to make up games and you had to, invent stuff to do. It
Yeah.
wasn't just all given to you. And we kind of transitioned then to Mattel Electronic Football, and the slippery slope started, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's what happens. And, and then all those other things kind of got lost,
Yeah. Yeah.
which it's sad. I think it's a little bit sad. And, I hope I challenge all the parents out there. It's like give your kids experiences outside just unstructured,
Right.
right? Let them go to a park and just make something up,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't care. Throw rocks at birds. I mean, it's like, or at a hornet's nest, like I did, right? It's like, but there's something about that.
Yeah.
You learn limits and what you should and shouldn't do. You learn that on your own without a helicopter parent telling you.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
there's
know,
something to that.
and it's funny, kids will probably resist that initially, but once they do that, they'll realize how fun it is.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun. Like, I've taken my son, we're just climbing on rocks up in Prescott, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this is fun. What are we going to do? That's his first thing we get out of the car. What are we supposed to do here?
Yeah.
It's like,
Give
we're
me
not
my
supposed to do anything.
yeah.
We're do whatever you want. You want
Yeah.
to climb on a rock on big boulders and then throw rocks at birds and, walk through a puddle. And it's called experiencing life, my son, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, Brady, our producer is tapping me on the shoulder here.
Time, huh?
And he says to remember to hit subscribe and like and interact with us on X or wherever else. What are your favorite TV shows? Right? Maybe you had favorite, maybe Fantasy Island. Maybe you're like, hey, how come you left Fantasy Island in the plane? Right? It's like Mr. O'Rourke and
Yeah.
maybe you have some. Share those with us on YouTube, Spotify, X, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Holy cow, we're kings of media, right? We're just about everywhere. Elon Musk's got nothing on us.
That's right.
And just want to new announcement. We are now on UHF channel 75 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We thought we'd
Wow.
get the basketball folks, right, from North Carolina with all their great basketball teams, Duke, Fayetteville, North Carolina, UHF channel 75. So for those of you on your TV, you turn the top dial goes to UHF and then the bottom dial has all those numbers like all the way up to 83. So turn that to 75 and then adjust your antenna until it comes in there in Fayetteville and you can watch the show on
Man, those,
UHF. I
yeah.
miss those days. So for Brady and myself, thanks for tuning in. We hope you had fun tonight. We hope your team wins the NCAA tournament, even though it's really boring because it's all four number ones. And but just at the end of the day, you got to be home before the streetlights come on. Or, as we found out from Brady, before the Canadian police tell your girlfriend that
That's
something bad's going to happen, right? So we will see you again next time, Brady. Good seeing you as always.
likewise.
Take care, my friend.
Have a good week.
We'll see you all.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.